There are over 2,000 species of insects that humans regularly eat around the world, and yet the average Western consumer would sooner skip a meal entirely than take a single bite. That gap, between what billions of people consider completely normal food and what others find utterly revolting, is one of the most fascinating windows into human culture, biology, and survival that exists anywhere on Earth. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover why some of the strangest foods on the planet are not just edible, but genuinely delicious, deeply nutritious, and in many cases, far more sustainable than the food sitting in your refrigerator right now. We will cover fermented shark that smells like ammonia, living seafood that moves on the plate, fruit so pungent it is banned on public transport, and a cheese that is technically illegal in the United States. And the most counterintuitive insight of all, some of these foods are quietly becoming the future of what the entire world eats. Stay with us. Let us start with some background. Food disgust is not universal. It is learned. Psychologists refer to this as the omnivore's dilemma. Humans are biologically capable of eating an enormous variety of foods, but our cultures train us to reject most of them. This protective instinct helped our ancestors avoid poisonous or contaminated food, but it also created powerful taboos around perfectly safe ingredients. What one culture considers a delicacy, another considers unthinkable. The science is clear: disgust is mostly cultural programming, not biological warning. Humans have been eating unusual foods for as long as we have existed. Fermentation, for example, was not invented to be adventurous. It was invented out of necessity. Before refrigeration, fermenting food was survival. The Inuit of Greenland developed a process called kiviak, where hundreds of small seabirds called little auks are stuffed inside a seal carcass and left to ferment under rocks for up to 18 months. The result is a powerful, pungent, nutrient-dense food that sustained communities through brutal Arctic winters. This is not bizarre for the sake of it. This is engineering a food supply under extreme conditions. Now let us move into the foods themselves, starting with hakarl, fermented Greenlandic shark. The Greenland shark has flesh that is naturally toxic when fresh due to high concentrations of trimethylamine oxide. Eating it raw would cause severe neurological symptoms. Icelanders discovered centuries ago that by burying the shark underground, pressing out the toxic fluids, then hanging it to dry for 4 to 5 months, the toxins break down completely. The result is a chewy, intensely ammonia-scented food with a flavor profile that chef Anthony Bourdain once called the single most disgusting thing he had ever eaten. And yet Icelanders have been eating it for hundreds of years as a cultural cornerstone of midwinter festivals. Disgust, in this case, is almost entirely in the nose. But here is what nobody talks about when it comes to extreme fermentation: the microbiology happening inside these foods is extraordinarily complex. Fermented foods like hakarl, Korean hanjeo, and Swedish surströmming contain microbial ecosystems that produce compounds humans cannot easily get elsewhere. The process does not just preserve food. It transforms it into something biochemically different from what it started as. Speaking of surströmming, this Swedish fermented herring is regularly described as the worst-smelling food in existence. Laboratory tests have confirmed it produces higher concentrations of foul-smelling compounds than any other commercially sold food. Airlines have banned it. Some apartment buildings in Sweden have outlawed opening a can indoors. And yet Swedes eat it every August at traditional festivals called surströmming skiva, wrapping it in flatbread with onion, sour cream, and potatoes. In context, with the right accompaniments, the flavor is sharp, salty, and deeply savory. The smell and the taste are genuinely different experiences. Moving to Southeast Asia, we encounter durian, a fruit so polarizing it has its own airport ban in Singapore and across parts of Thailand. Durian is a large, spiky fruit whose interior flesh has been described as everything from vanilla custard to gym socks soaked in turpentine. The smell comes from a complex mixture of sulfur compounds, esters, and ketones, over 50 different volatile chemicals working together. But nutritionally, durian is remarkable. It is high in B vitamins, vitamin C, iron, potassium, and healthy fats. In Malaysia and Indonesia, it is simply called the king of fruits. Millions of people consider it the greatest flavor on earth. The people who hate it and the people who love it are reacting to the exact same chemical compounds. Now let us talk about kasumarzu, a traditional Sardinian cheese that is, strictly speaking, alive. This fermented sheep's milk cheese is intentionally introduced to cheese fly larvae, which digest the fats inside and produce a soft, creamy texture with an intensely sharp flavor. When you eat kisumarzu, the larvae are still alive. The cheese is banned for sale in the European Union and the United States due to food safety regulations, which means it technically only exists through black market trade and personal production in Sardinia. And yet it has been made and eaten there for centuries. Local Sardinians argue the larvae are proof the cheese is safe. If the maggots are dead, do not eat it. But here is the question worth asking: is it actually dangerous? Studies have shown that the larvae can survive in the human digestive system and have caused intestinal lesions in some cases. This is not a food to romanticize uncritically. But the tradition itself tells us something fascinating about how food safety and cultural practice have historically existed in tension, and how Western regulatory frameworks sometimes clash with ancient culinary heritage. Rhetorical question worth sitting with: if something has been eaten safely by a community for 500 years, does a modern regulation retroactively make it wrong? Let us shift to living foods, specifically odoridon, a Japanese dish where fresh squid is served over rice, and when soy sauce is poured over it, the sodium triggers the squid's neurons and it begins to move on the plate. The squid is dead, but the nerve cells remain active for a short time. It is not alive, but it moves. This dish is not unusual in Japan, it is simply fresh. The freshness is the point. In Japanese food culture, the proximity of an ingredient to its living state is often a direct marker of quality. Similarly, sanachi is a Korean dish of live octopus, chopped and served immediately, still moving. Diners are advised to chew thoroughly because the suction cups can attach to the throat. It is a dish that requires skill to eat safely, and it is completely mainstream in coastal South Korea. Here is the deeper analytical insight across all of these foods. Every single one of them developed because it solved a real problem. Hakkarl solved toxicity. Surströmming solved preservation. Kisumarzu maximized fermentation in a region without industrial infrastructure. Durian provided caloric density in tropical forests. Insects, which we mentioned at the very beginning, provide more protein per kilogram than beef, require a fraction of the land and water, and produce a tiny percentage of the greenhouse gases. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization published a 2013 report explicitly recommending insects as a sustainable protein source for the global population. This is not fringe thinking. This is institutional science. The foods we find strange are often the foods that work. They represent human ingenuity operating at its most local and most creative. And as the global food system faces increasing pressure from climate change, resource scarcity, and population growth, many food scientists believe the future will look a great deal more like these ancient solutions than like the industrial food products currently lining supermarket shelves. The pattern is clear once you see it. The world's most unusual foods are unusual only to outsiders. To the communities that created them, they are heritage, identity, celebration, and sustenance. Our discomfort with them says far more about our own cultural conditioning than it does about the foods themselves. That fermented shark, that living octopus, that maggot cheese, they each carry centuries of human problem-solving, cultural memory, and flavor knowledge that no laboratory has yet managed to replicate. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Flavor Vault for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.